See how the audio quality is here? It's going to be dark. This is an elliptical, but I'm watching PBK's homeroom. It's January 17th, Wednesday. I did a live stream this morning. And now I'm watching PBK talk about the Jordan Peterson-Vervaeke convo. And I just keep thinking about this comment that he made at 27-minute mark, something like that. I put a comment with the timestamp, but Peterson says something like perception is based in a nested set of assumptions, and that's partially true. It's not completely true, and I've been thinking again about Barfield, and this is why I love Barfield, because his book is Saving the Appearances, a case study in idolatry. And I don't think that I realized quite to the same depth until now that, okay, so with perception, Barfield lays out these three parts. There's the figuration, there's the alpha thinking, and then there's beta thinking. And so the figuration, I would say, is, so there's the unrepresented, so the thing that has zero representation. And then there's the figuration, alpha thinking, beta thinking. And so you could almost think like I'm not exactly sure how one-to-one these things are, or how direct these things are. And again, things are many-to-many. But, so you could almost think of like raw empiricism as the figuration. And the way that I think about, if anybody knows Barfield better than me, you can correct me, but I think of alpha thinking as the name. And the naming is the framing. In some sense, it's a boundary. It's a boundary that you put on. It's a unity of multiplicity. So you see all these things that are one thing, and then you name it, right? So a cup, a tree, or whatever. A cup or a tree has many parts, many things, but the unity of it is the name, the cup. And here's the main point of this video. Prior to the name, so at the figuration level, which I would say is it's not the unrepresented itself, it's what I would call it is a pre-verbal, what's the right word? Pre-verbal apprehension. It's a pre-verbal, pre-awareness. It's the pre-verbal, pre-awareness, pre-name part of the perception, for lack of a better way to say it. And so, like, here's the thing. It's like spirit and law. That's more like the spirit that searches the depth of a thing. Who knows the depth of a thing, or who can search the mind of God but the spirit? It's the same with a man. It's the same with anything, though. The spirit is closest, I don't know if this is right, okay? It's the closest thing to the figurations, which then searches and plays in the unrepresented. And I just never realized, it's impossible to have an idol at the figuration level, because it's pre-awareness, it's pre-ego, it's pre-name, it's pre-assumptions, but it is part of the whole of what a perception is, because what C.S. Lewis says is true. What you see and hear depends a lot upon where you're standing and the kind of person you are. And he also says in the Space, or the Ransom trilogy, in the first book, when Ransom first goes to Malacandra, and he's making out the landscape and the topography and figuring out what is what, there's a line in there. He can't really see anything. I mean, he can, but he can't. And guess what? That clues you into seeing is not seeing. In order to see, you have to not see things. And most of your visual, most of your brain and your visual, like optic nerve and everything is inhibitory. You're shutting things out so you can actually see things to focus. And then you have the periphery, which is the context for the focus. So, like in order to see a tree, you have to see the sky, or what's behind it. But you're peripherally seeing the sky and then seeing the tree. So it's always both things. But then when you get into, I would say you're also always, after you have developed language, you're always associating a name with the thing you're seeing. But there's also part of your perception that is I don't even know that it's before, because it's probably simultaneously happening. But it's a mapping of the territory. The territory isn't the map. The territory is and is not the name. Because anytime, this is the Hegel, Todd McGowan stuff that I love, anytime you predicate something, you implicitly include the context or the opposite, the negation. So like, there is a tree. When you say there is a tree, you're also saying what's not a tree. Everything else. It's just native to any predication. And so, okay, all of that's context. The main thing I want to say is like, before a name, this seemed profound to me. Before a name, there can be no idolatry. Where I think the evolution of human consciousness is going, and this is what I mean by iconic thinking, is that we need to save the appearances. We need to get to the place where we can name things without immediately falling into idolatry. Where we can recognize that the name is an icon. It's a portal to an infinite amount of things, or a relative infinity, as Ted says in his Convivium lecture, because everything's relative, but not arbitrary. All right, I just wanted to say that.